I'm Raquel, and we have more Kitty.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
we're going to talk about the Santa Clauses episode 5 and 6 finale. These are the
Woo.
last two episodes of the season. And yeah, let's get started.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Purple.
All right. No, where is... Ah, there he is. We're going to talk about episode 5, Across the Yule-Verse. So it takes place in Chicago. I believe we're in Chicago right now.
Slippers.
And we go to where we
go back to that cliffhanger where they were like,
yes. And it was revealed the glove put on Scott Calvin's shoulder was Bernard.
I was surprised. I really thought it was going to be like the main Santa Claus. Like, that's what I was guessing. They wanted us to think that, though, because, it's got the black gloves, the little fluff around it. Like, they wanted us to think it.
They want us to second guess ourselves here.
Even though at some point in the previews they showed Bernard showing up. I don't know why I didn't think of it.
Yeah, and Bernard's Scott Calvin's like, you look a little older. And it's like, I lived this a long amount of time. Of course, I'm going to, I'm going to age.
Yeah, he said he gave up immortality to marry a human.
Mm-hmm. And Bernard's like, you need to come back to the North Pole. It's in dire straits. And like, Scott is like in denial. He's like, what, you can't hear me?
Are you sure your volume's just not up?
Okay. So you can't hear me. That is not good.
Yes, Bernard is coming to tell him what the other one had told him. That shit ain't right. It's a mess.
Can't hear you. He said he can't hear me.
Oh, okay. The sound's come in now.
The sound coming in now? Let me check here.
The audio just kicked in. Meow.
No, my volume is working fine.
Maybe his audio is being weird. But either way, I think it's working now, and that's what matters.
Mm-hmm, it's working, so...
Meow.
Yeah, it's working. Almost gave me a scare, Potato.
So yes, there's Bernard.
Yep. So Scott Calvin is like in denial, like, the news just needs to get, needs to just come and get comfortable as the role of Santa. And Bernard's trying to tell him, no, the North Pole's in danger. And Scott Calvin thinks that his role as Santa was by accident. And Bernard's like, you don't know, do you? And Scott's
he's like, you really think that metal just fell off? Like, please.
Mm-hmm. And I have to mention, Scott Calvin's like, how did you freeze my family? And he's like, he has this kind of some color, like a clicker that freezes time.
Yeah, I think something like that. And I think he was indicating he wanted one of those. But he was like, man, my wife's going to be annoyed when you unfreeze her. I was like,
yeah. Like, Scott unfreezes his family, and like, I don't think Bernard wants them involved in this, so he refreezes them.
Yep.
And again, Scott thinks his role as Santa was by accident, and Bernard's like, you don't know, do you? So they go through the front door into this portal. And just gonna skip the intro here. So they go to this portal and go into this black and white timeline and gray. And Scott's like, what is this? And here he meets the previous Santa Claus from the past. And he's like, telling Scott Calvin the meaning of Christmas and the Christmas spirit. And he said this is, in his time it was the Great Depression, really hard time. So give oranges to the kids. And he's telling Scott Calvin, the Christmas spirit is in here. Again, Scott's being,
hard-headed, like he does.
Exactly.
He's kind of pretentious sometimes. I've noticed that in other episodes. I kind of just want to kind of pop
it. Pretentious, yes. Yes, he is. Goes through the door, and then he goes into another time period of the previous Santa Clauses. Goes for another portal. He sees Krampus. Not what I'm imagining what Krampus would look like. You know what I mean?
Right. Yeah, that is sort of funny. Krampus looks so annoyed with him. He's like, go through that door. Like he's so casual about it.
He's like, Scott's like, how do I get out of here? He's like, Krampus like, just go through that door. He's like, go. So.
And he's like, oh, it's stealing presents, huh? Okay. Do
it. Yep. Goes through another door.
And there they are again, waiting for him like a horror movie. I think we can put like some scary music.
It's right on time, right on cue. It's like you're just waiting for you here.
Yeah.
And he's like, "What's the deal here?"
Oh wait! I think that's the house he grew up in.
Yeah.
That's how he got him back to that.
It's like, this is like the house I grew up in. And there's little Scott Calvin right there, waiting for Santa Claus. And here comes this previous Santa Claus down the chimney. And he's like saying, Scott, like, I can't give everything that you asked for. And Scott, the young Scott realizes the real reason as to why he has the long Christmas list. It was the Christmas list for his friends, his buddies,
Yep.
And he said he can tell Santa was coming because he heard a whisper in here. Really, a really tender moment. And the elder scout's like to the Santa, like, what was the word he said? It's some, like, I forgot the word he said, but he said you put me to sleep or something, because he did go to bed after that.
Yeah, like that fairy dust or something.
The fairy dust.
You dusted me.
You dusted me. Yes, you dusted me. So he
Took me a
doesn't
second to remember. My brain
yes.
was not having it. It was buffering for a minute there.
Like loading.
Have a little thing spinning.
Yeah. And he's like, you dusted me. So he doesn't remember this happening until now.
I think that's unfair.
Yeah.
They want kids to have faith in Christmas, but then make sure they forget. It's like you're shooting yourself in the foot over here.
Hmm. And there's a little Scott Calvin fast asleep in the chair. So he goes through the door again, and he enters this grand room. And he meets this Santa Claus. It looks like a pope, but it's Santa Claus in a robe garb. And he's like, telling them like the meaning of Christmas, the spirit of Christmas. Really nice portrait. Telling Scout Calvin, you just need to believe, and if you go, fades away in a puff of smoke. Bernard and the previous Santa, like, I'm assuming apple cider, I think.
Yeah, I think so.
Nice pool table. And right here, I think he was telling, Scott telling Scott there was a reason why he was chosen as the next Santa Claus. And, Scott Calvin still thinks his role as Santa Claus was chosen by accident. And the previous Santa is like, do you really think after saying one single hey, you really think I'd fall off the roof? I've been when he been on tons of roofs.
Right. He's like, ethereal
Mm-hmm.
beings don't just fall off roofs. I was like, oh snap. So
Well,
he realizes the Santas have conspired against him, sort of. To have this
kind of, yes. Although Scott did fall off the roof when he was Santa Claus.
Well, yeah, but they also make a clear difference between him and the other ones. This was the first human Santa they ever had.
So these were
Which is
ethereal.
like a plot twist.
Plot twist, yes.
And the
So
others
the-
were referred to as ethereal beings, which I guess
mhm.
just means otherworldly. I
Did they
suppose.
really say why, as an ethereal Santa, he was chosen?
I think they kind of said that because the world was changing a bit, that they might want to try something different, and they decided they want to try a human. And Bernard even says, like, yeah, I was a little skeptical about that, like the idea of putting that kind of power into the hands of a human. So,
So it was like some kind of test.
kind of like because I got for some reason the way the world they said was changing, they thought that it might need a human touch instead of
Uh
ethereal
huh.
beings.
Ah, that's a mighty big stuff.
Harold.
Mm. It's like really dotting on him, like he was like
Yeah.
chosen as this role as Santa Claus. And the other Santa Clauses from the past come down. Krampus. And Bernard shows the orb displays the Christmas spirit and it's darkening, losing its light.
Yeah, the crystal ball thing is real bad right now.
And he says, "Show the North Pole." That's what Bernard says to to the uh, the globe. And we see Betty working with one of the elves,
And
and
at
most of
some
the
point,
elves are gone.
yeah, at some point I don't remember exactly when it happened, but at some point they were talking about the elves disappearing. They're like, you should have led with that. Like that should have been the first thing you said, which is fair.
Mm, fair enough, yeah. And Betty's like helping with the toy making, but not doing a good job at it. And here comes the new Santa Claus, the one that's making a mess of everything. Simon Santa Claus. And it's like Simon's like, like what are you doing? Like, I'm trying to make. She's like, I try to like make toys. This kid, send it a letter, and Simon's like, send a letter. It's like, and Simon's like, like kind of shocked. He's not like, he didn't send like a tech notice, like,
Yeah.
and stuff like that. And that this kid has a list, and it's like, and Simon's like, it goes against everything. What are we doing here? And stuff like that. Hi, Die by the Sword. How are you?
Yeah, death by the sword. Or die by the sword, not death by the sword. I don't know what the fuck I said that for.
And Biddy's like
Oh,
trying.
this poor little elf right here. She's just so sad. And poor Betty's trying to put a truck together and she can't. And she's
Yeah,
split apart.
yeah. She's telling her don't lose the Christmas spirit. I
Uh-oh.
think her name's. I could be wrong. Penelope. I
Could
think
be. Could
could
be.
be. I might be
A lot of
wrong on
elves to
that.
keep up with.
And
And this jackass comes by. Oh, not him.
uh-huh.
Wrong jackass. Sorry. But Simon was just ruining more of their Christmas spirit before he walked
I
off.
forget his name.
Yeah, I can't remember either, but it's so funny.
It is
And
funny.
that tinfoil hat is protecting him. That's so weird.
What's his name? I'm trying to remember. Ah, yeah, Gary. Gary, the one-eye elf that loves hot cocoa and maple syrup, apparently. And he's walking around with a kiss hat.
A tinfoil hat, yeah.
Yeah, kiss tinfoil hat on.
Yeah, it's a tinfoil hat to keep like.
We get that till later.
Well, no, I mean it doesn't explain necessarily why, but they joke
Yes.
about people who do conspiracy theories as wearing tinfoil hats because it's supposed to keep the government from reading your mind, and so he's kind of going with that motif, kind of that style.
Yeah. So I'm assuming her name's Penelope right here, and she's sad, and she, disappears like the other elves. And then when we come back to Scott Calvin, and he's like, in shock, like, the elves are disappearing. And Bernard's like, the North Pole's in trouble. Like, and Scott's like, how do I get back? And Bernard's like, just use the globe to get you back to the North Pole.
Yeah, they finally talked him into it.
Yep. Finally kicking in, he needs to get back into the North Pole.
And he admits he's been an ass, basically.
Yeah.
As much as he can admit it.
He needs to go back to the North Pole and fix things and back his role as Santa Claus. The previous Santa Claus is telling the time, when he was Santa Claus and stuff like that, and the time Star Wars came, I guess, which she seemed a little bit annoyed about. Bernard, comes in, saying, to the, ethereal Santa Clauses, this is why Scott Calvin was chosen as Santa Claus, and he said, he was skeptical as Scott Calvin being an inhuman taking this role as Santa Claus, but said Scott Calvin as Santa Claus never disappointed Bernard. He kept going and stuff like that. So he has a lot of faith with Scott Calvin. He gave a hug, and poof, he goes back to the North Pole. Actually, he said he has to go back home first.
Yeah.
To tell his family, and then
they want to go with him when they find out what's going on. And he's kind of a dick.
Then back to the North Pole, the tech elf is, he's doing everything by himself, and he's saying he needs extra hands here. He can't do this all by himself. And, Simon is like, doesn't care, tell him to, like, get on it and stuff like that. And, like, the tech elf was like, even though he's really techy, he's like, you can't do this with the other elves, we need this Christmas spirit. This is not what Christmas is all about. Then we go to little Grace, and she's cutting paper. She's making paper snowflakes. And here comes her dad. And Grace is like telling her. So she's remembering her mother, and Simon is like, I wish he wishes that her mom, his wife, was with them. And Grace is like, she's with us and stuff like that. And Simon's remembering the time they had the last Christmas together with Grace's mother and his wife. And that she's, I'm assuming sick at this time, not feeling well.
Yeah.
The mother is. Grace is fast asleep.
Yeah, she's sick with cancer, I believe he said in one of the episodes.
Mm.
At least I think they hinted that's what it was.
Right. And she tells Simon, like, to take care of Grace, which,
And he said he would.
Mm-hmm. That he would. Just reminiscing. And someone takes a pillow. And he thinks it's a marshmallow
once again.
Yeah, and Grace reveals they don't make this like marshmallow pillows anymore. It's just a regular pillow. That was funny though. Back to Chicago where Scott is. He's telling what happened while they were like frozen. And they're Mrs. Claus is like saying, I have an identity now as a principal. Calvin has, is getting used to school and, having this girlfriend. Sandra's also getting used to school and having friends. They're reluctant to, leave Chicago because Mrs. Claus really thought they were trying to have a normal life. And Scott's like saying that the elves are disappearing, and that's when Mrs. Claus changes her tune. It's like, we have to go back to the North Pole. And Scott Calvin is like, doesn't want his family to come because there's danger involved.
Yep.
Mm-hmm. But Mrs. Claus is like, no, we're gonna go anyway.
Yep. Because the daughter knows how to talk to the animals.
Mm-hmm. And Calvin can sense magic.
Yeah, he can see the vortex as well.
Mm-hmm. I know, sweetie. I know. My little kitty cat's trying to get my attention.
Aww, cute little pumpkin.
Yes, she's cute. I know, sweetie. Yeah, and in order to get their stuff ready and stuff to go to the North Pole with Scott Calvin. And so they go upstairs to get all ready and stuff like that. And here comes Noel. He too wants to go back to the North Pole to see Betty. And Scott takes out the spirit orb, saying that they're gonna go back to the North Pole and fix things. And they leave without the others. So they're back in the North Pole.
Mm-hmm.
And Noel says like he's gonna go look for Betty, which Scott is fine with, and Scott's gonna go and fix things. So back to the Chicago home, Sandra, Carol / Mrs. Claus, and Calvin go downstairs to get ready to leave. And Calvin's like, "Where's Dad? Did Dad leave?" And Mrs. Claus is like gonna kill Scott because he's left without them.
Oh, I'd be pissed.
Oh yeah, I would be annoyed too. Like, how dare you leave me?
Yeah, he would definitely hear about it when I got there. I'd be like, motherfucker.
And here comes Riley. I guess they were doing this game night thing together.
Yeah.
As long as it wasn't like the sheep
It's
game.
also not flip the sheep or whatever.
It's not unless it's the sheep that got her parents' divorce. Oof.
And they're like, oh.
Ooh.
They both look awkward right there too. Like,
And Mrs. Claus is like, this is not a good time. We have something else going on.
And she's not gonna believe it.
And she is like, and Riley likes Santa's shirt, and she like orders it and tells them it could be here right away because of Simon's every Christmas Day idea. And she orders it, and bing! It's
like 2 minutes later,
right there at the front porch, like instantly. I wish packaging was that fast.
I don't know. I think we would just become less and less patient about stuff.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
We already get antsy when shit isn't here in 2 days. In my day, it used to
Fair
take a week or so to get here.
Fair enough. So she's gonna try the shirt on. They open the door and see all these drones.
Yeah, that is wild.
And Calvin's like, I see a portal in the sky, and Sandra and Mrs. Claus say, we don't see anything. So then it just proves that, Calvin can see magic. And there it is. There's a portal in the sky where all these drones coming out with packages and stuff. And Mrs. Claus is trying to think of something. How do we get to the North Pole? And Sandra's like, I can talk to one of the animals to give us a ride through the portal. She also has a magic ability to speak animals, and she said she thinks Calvin and her mom are going to think this is crazy that she actually can talk to animals.
Right.
And Mrs. Claus is like, oh dear, craziness left a long time ago. I'm assuming it's when she met, Scott Calvin.
Yeah.
So back to the pole where Scott Calvin is. He's looking for the elves. There's no one there. He's like, where are the elves? He can't find any. And here comes Betty.
Poor Betty.
Yeah, poor Betty. She listens and she hears music.
Ew.
And it's Grace playing on a harp. And Grace is like, I forget what she said here. Do you remember, Maria?
Do what?
What Grace said on the scene right here?
She's talking about how she's kind of sad that
Mm-hmm.
like her dad doesn't have time for her anymore, and he's kind of got lost up and stuff. And Betty's trying really hard not to tell her her dad's an asshole. Like you can tell.
Yeah.
She's like, well, if there's a problem, let's go tell my dad and he'll fix it. And Betty doesn't have the heart to go, your dad is the fucking problem.
Yeah.
He totally is.
Mm-hmm.
But she's, is nice to her and leaves.
Yeah. And then, yeah.
Oh, she's coming back in. Oh, my bad. I didn't realize where we were on the thing.
No, she's, like you said, she's talking about, like, Betty's trying to cheer up, Grace when she's feeling, her dad doesn't have time for her. And doesn't have the heart to tell Grace that, your dad is the problem. She leaves.
I'd like to have seen what would happen if she had. That little girl would have marched right in there and told him. Although she does try.
And then right here, Grace doesn't feel well right here. And she too disappears.
Poor Betty.
And then Noel comes in right after looking for Betty. But she's gone. It's too late.
He just missed her.
Mm-hmm.
That's kind of things frustrate me. I'm like, oh no. Like,
Mm-hmm. Back in the Calvin residence in the normal world, he's trying to tell Riley, he has to go, and she's like, "You're just like all the other guys," and he's like, "What other guys?" And he tells her the truth, and she thinks he's crazy. And Calvin is like, just wait. I think till midnight to see. I think either him or his dad coming down the chimney, and she'll find the proof she needs. And she thinks he's crazy, and just takes off. Poor Calvin.
Indeed.
Mm-hmm. Back to the North Pole. There's Gary almost trying to, like, I don't know, whipped cream spray Scott Calvin.
I'm not sure, but man, it's almost like he's got a sugar substance abuse problem. It's funny. He's hitting the maple syrup kind of hard. He gets a little too wild, that cider. I mean, I don't know, but it's wild. Like, and he's so cranky. Like he's got 4 kids to support and a bad mortgage. Like he's just so cranky.
It's like he's gonna spray him for security reasons. He's like, he's like, oh, it's you. You look different. And he's like saying, I need your help, like, save the North Pole. And he's saying the reason is he's still only here because he's wearing the Kiss tinfoil hat. Which is funny. So Scott's like saying, let's go, let's save the North Pole. And he's telling Gary to put down the hot cocoa. And he just takes a sip of the hot cocoa.
Yeah, he's like, nope, put it down. He's like, drink.
Now, back in the real world, Sandra's talking to a horse to go through the magic portal. And the horse is like, nope. Calvin is not really convinced.
Yeah, they're not 100% convinced. Even though they've lived in a magical place like for a long time, you think they'd be a little more open-minded, but
yeah, you would think so.
That's why movies, people always want to doubt the kids. What's up with that?
Mm-hmm. So back to the North Pole.
And he's looking at how it's decorated, which is pretty lousy.
Right.
He's like, really? We need a decorator or something like that.
Mm-hmm. And he touches
the garland trap. The fucking garland trap that was mentioned like a few
He touches the tinsel in the tree and it wraps around him and binds him.
And the kid is like, why?
And Gary's like, yeah, I should have told you not to touch the Christmas tree. And then comes the drones, which are head of security, I guess.
Which is creepy.
And Gary's telling the drones to not shoot.
Yeah, we're not armed or whatever.
Yeah. And he's like, so they're in trouble. Back to the real world, Calvin, Mrs. Claus, and Sandra were on a wagon, not a horse, about to fly with the horse. And
it needs a pep talk. So.
Yeah, it needs a pep talk. Calvin's not really convinced. Mrs. Claus is also anxious, but she's trying to, believe in her daughter. So they take off and they're the horses is running and stuff like that. And they're like, Sandra, gate. And finally at the last moment, they took off and fly and head to the portal. Back in the North Pole, Scott, Kelvin, and Gary were arrested in this dungeon that looks like some kind of sweet dungeon. If you don't mind me, kind of does look like so. Like right here, Scott Calvin's trying to tell Simon and things are falling apart. Let us loose. And he shows the spiritual orb. Here, look, the spirit of Christmas is dying. And Simon's like, oh, I was looking for that, and took the snow globe and left him in jail. And I think Gary says, you should have saying, kind of sarcastically saying, you should have showed him that. And Scott's like, yeah, I know. So they're back in the real world. So the horse is finally flying. They're up in the air. And Calvin's telling them where the portal is and stuff like that. And Yeah, they look like all nervous in the sky flying with a horse.
Yeah, because they don't see it, so they're just trying to take it on faith, what he's saying.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So they go through the portal. There's this magical orb. Simon takes it, leaves them in the dungeon. Gary's like, you should have showed him that. So they're stuck in jail. Look, it does look like a jail, but it looks like it's made of sweets. I mean, the walls are. And that's the end of the episode. That's episode 5, Across the Yule-Verse. And I'm going to go to the next and the last episode. Episode 6, A Christmas to Remember. Come on, work. Ah, man, it's not working. No, don't be frozen. Okay, try this again. Okay, so we have Grace in the snow globe room.
Yeah.
And she gets this specific snow globe.
Yeah, she wants to get a memory.
She wants to give her dad, Simon, a memory. And they go to the witch's house. And apparently she's, making soup.
Yes, I believe so.
Mm-hmm. And she hears the
bell.
bell.
It was soup season or something, and it's like, isn't it always up there? Isn't it? It's pretty much the same season all the time up there. Is what it looks like.
And she hears the bell ring. It's like, oh, it's the Calvins. And she notices the Santa coat is gone.
Poor little thing.
Like, where is it? So she heads off to find the coat. So, I guess Mrs. Claus, Calvin, and Sandra finally made it to the North Pole. There's the horse, and Simon's like, "Where's this? Who is this? Where this horse came from?" And tells the drones to check out the North Pole. There's Calvin, Sandra, and Mrs. Claus, and gonna go and save their dad / husband. And there's Scott Calvin behind bars with Gary, and he's kind of getting annoyed with Gary.
Yeah. Oh, what the? Oh, hold on a second.
Oh, phone call?
Yeah, sorry.
So they're chit-chatting, bonding. And they hear something. Well, I thought they hear something. Here's the drone. And I think Scott Calvin's like, the drone can't hear us saying, like, if you find a Santa coat. Actually, before that, Scott Calvin asks Gary if Simon has put the coat on. He did not, never did it the first day he came to the North Pole, so he did not have the what's it called, the sanctification process. And Calvin, and so the drone's right there, and Calvin is, I mean, not, well, Scott Calvin is wondering, can the drone hear that, what he said? And Gary repeats it, and yes, it was confirmed the drone heard it and told Simon. It said that who has the Santa coat controls the North Pole. And Simon says, like, to the drones, find the Santa coat. And here comes Grace. She wants to, give.
Oh yeah, he lets his true colors show right here because he's like, get
she's
lost.
trying to give. She's trying to give him a present.
I have everything I want. We want. Yeah, he caught himself, but yeah.
Yeah, she's trying to give him a present, and like you said, his shoes color shown, telling, like, this is what he wants, and he's like really corrects itself, like, no, this is what, backtracks and says, no, this is what we want.
Right, but she obviously wants her dad.
Yeah, this is not what she wants. She wants her dad.
Yeah, he raises his voice at her, and she's just like,
yeah, to go back to her room. And all she wanted to do was give a present to her dad,
which makes him very much an obvious bad guy.
Mm-hmm. And she's in shock. Poor kid.
Yeah, indeed.
And takes off. And part of the Santa workshop, we see him roll, just cuddling and to himself and crying. Here comes Mrs. Claus, Calvin, and he hits his head on the door because he's really tall. And Noel's like, he can't find Betty. All the elves are missing. And Mrs. Claus knows, and Santa said, we're gonna, put a stop to this. So again, Calvin hits his head on the door frame because he is tall. Saying that he misses the doors back in the real world because they're not short. Back in the sweet prison cell, Gary is blowing a kazoo.
I think he's fun. I think it's funny that you call it a sweet prison cell.
Well, yeah. Look at the sweets in the jail cell here. Look at the walls.
Well, yeah.
And yeah, like Gary's like playing a kazoo, and Scott Calvin is just getting more annoyed. Here comes Mrs. Santa Claus, Sandra, Calvin, Noel. And they're happy to see him. Like, we gotta save Christmas. How do we get out of here? Like, you're not sure how they're gonna escape this jail cell. And Gary says that he's like, have a bonding time with Scott Calvin, and I think Noel gets really jealous of Gary like you're bonding with a
His
friend
best
here,
friend. Yeah.
and he uh handles Gary roughly. That causes him to lose his Kiss tinfoil hat, saying that was the only thing that
was protecting
him. And
dun dun dun.
Gary says he's gonna what with I forgot what he said to Nope, but said he was basically saying he's gonna get him or something like that.
Well, yeah, he was worried about his tinfoil hat, and he's like, "Well, you're still here."
And then he wasn't.
Yep.
Oops.
Yikes.
And puts a handkerchief on and says "Bon appetit." It starts eating the bars.
It's like a little bib or something.
A little bib. And
I forget what they're called, but yeah, you put it on kind of like a bib, and
starts eating the bars.
Yeah, because they're made out of licorice, so you just kind of start gnawing on the bars.
So apparently they're made out of licorice. Do you like black licorice?
Yuck.
No.
It's so nasty.
What about red licorice?
Yuck, no. Although it's not as bad, but still.
So back with Simon, he's looking for the Santa coat. And he's like, he signals the Jones to find this Santa coat for money, and the Jones don't have any use for money. He's like, stupid Jones. The Jones said we could hear that. Looking for the the Santa coat, and he sees this door says warning, do not open, and he puts apparently the combination lock is a jingle tune, and he's like, so obvious. And guess what we see? Those toy robots from the movies. I think it was from the second movie, yes, when the toy Santa was sabotaging things. Toy soldiers. Yep, they're toy soldiers. And telling the truth, those faces are kind of creepy on the toy soldiers.
Yes, they are.
Mm-hmm. Kind of like really unnerving. Something like this is not looking good. So Scott Kelvin is finally out of the sweet jail and eating black. Apparently, him and his family and Noel were eating the black licorice.
Yeah, and everybody's just sick of it. Oh.
Yeah. Yep. And Noel picks up the key and it's on the desk, and and Scott Calvin's like, really? All this time, you couldn't look at the freaking desk, and everyone's just looking annoyed. Like, why did we eat this black licorice for?
Huh?
Noel looked at the desk, and the key for the jail cell was right there.
Oh yeah, it was there the whole time, and everybody's like, "Oh."
Yeah, I'm like, and then Scott Calvin's like, really? Didn't look at the desk? And everyone just looks annoyed, like, why did we eat this black licorice in the first place? So they head off to stop Simon. Sandra goes to her bedroom, and there's a little door. And I forget the little ferret thing's name. What was the creature's name?
Which creature? Oh yeah, it's something like Paul or Henry. It's some like completely normal name, you know.
Paulette or something like that.
Critter.
Yeah, it's a little critter.
Yeah, I think its name is Henry or something. It's some, like I said, like some like classic older name.
Let me find out real quick because I can't remember. Lewis. It was named Lewis.
Man, I feel like a dumbass. I knew it was some regular name. I just couldn't. Yeah.
Yeah, so the little creature's name is Lewis. If I could get it like get this picture scene of it, that'd be great. I can't, but you can see it right here. There's the little critter right there, named Lewis.
Yeah, it's kind of like a little ferret thing.
Yeah, and it has a cute little bow. It has a cute little bow, red bow on its neck. Very cute. And she's telling Lewis, like, I need help and stuff like that. Stuff like that. And Lewis is in. Sandra takes off. To help save the North Pole. And Grace was hiding in that room as she heard everything. So she knows there's something wrong at the North Pole. Calvin goes. So Calvin in this scene is caught by the drones. And he, tries to, sweet talk to the drones. In the scene right here. And the drones are listening. Over here, we see Mrs. Claus, and then she hears a ruckus. She sees one of the drones. And then she sees the toy soldiers making a mess of things.
She gets all John Wick.
And the drone says to the toy soldiers, this unknown woman is not a threat. And
they had to add in a touch of sexism so she could throw in a touch of feminism. Like, they just had to do that.
Well, I think she was more upset about this unknown woman thing. I mean, that really...
Well, that's what I'm saying.
The script
writers felt like putting that in.
And, she takes the tinfoil of goodies with her image on the tinfoil and throws it to the toy soldiers. And she's trying to, she takes down the toy soldiers with no sweat. And here's Calvin talking to the drones, having a little nice pep talk with them. And here comes Scott. Calvin is like, Stephen Calvin, like, really? You guys, you really haven't a pep talk with the drones? And Calvin's like, yeah, they're sensitive. And there's Noel. And there's the Santa coat, trying to get back to Scott Calvin, I believe. Scott Calvin, Roll, and Calvin meet with with Mrs. Claus and Sandra. Mrs. Claus says she took down the toy soldiers because she has a lot of pent up frustration.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So they head off and see the Santa coat on the floor, and then notices Simon's the other cross of the room. So it's a duel to get the Santa coat. I'd love to see the duel to get the Santa coat between Simon and Scott. It was humorous.
That eyebrow.
So they both, all of them and Simon go right, trying to go to the Santa coat, and this gust of tornado comes in between them, and it's the witch. She gets the Santa coat, but gets knocked off, or gets knocked in a daze of the drone, and Simon gets the Santa coat. Oh dear. And threatens to burn the Santa coat. Oh dear. And Scott Calvin is like, you destroy it, you destroy everything. And Simon doesn't care. He's gonna do what he's gonna do. And Scott Calvin is like, Simon's delivery system, it's not really about Christmas. It's about giving, not receiving. And the coat slaps Simon in the face.
Awesome. He should have known right there he was fucking up. If the coat, and he tries to, the guy completely loses it.
And he turns around. He turns around like he's saying he's gonna put the coat in the fireplace. And then there comes Grace, and she's saying,
him like, "Are you kidding?
Are you the bad guy?"
Yep.
Mm-hmm. And Simon's like, No, I am not the bad guy.
The bad guys don't usually think they're the bad guys.
Well, true. And Scott Calvin comes in. No, your dad's not the bad guy. Just, well, he's kind of like implies misguided or lost. You know what I mean?
Lost his way or something like that.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I would have been like, yeah, your dad's an asshole. Like, I would have been mean about it. Your dad destroyed Christmas. He's trying to set fire to the coat.
In the fireplace, yeah.
Yep.
And she looks so sad.
Mm-hmm.
And she wanted to show, this is the Christmas gift she wanted to show her dad. It's a memory snow globe. And it's, the last Christmas she had with her mother, with her dad. Like, Scott is like saying he has something special to share with your dad. And she shows it to her dad, of the memory, her and her dad sharing and having time with her mother. Uh, the last time they had together on Christmas.
And her mom's trying to remind her when he says, "Oh, I'm going to give her the world." She doesn't need the world. She needs a dad. Apparently, he forgot that part.
Mm-hmm.
Man, everybody's just way too forgiving. I have to tell you, like Santa should have beat his ass.
And Simon's like,
he's like, "Honey, I'm
he
so sorry
called.
for being a douche."
Well, he didn't say that. He said, "Honey, I'm so sorry."
I know. I was
I know.
putting my own spin on it.
So Scott Calvin has the coat back, and then we go to the toy shop. All the toy soldiers are taken down because Mrs. Claus had was really frustrated. And Scott Calvin shows the spiritual orb. It's completely black, and he's saying that it's too late. Saying that Simon takes the blame, but Scott Calvin said, "No, this is on me." Christmas is destroyed. So they all gathered for a hug. And that somehow lights the spiritual orb. And Scott Calvin says, watch out, guys. And all the elves, including Gary, start coming back. Of course, Gary solves Noel, and he goes after him. So all the elves are coming back.
And then, yay! We're getting all the elves back.
Yeah,
That little uptight one's even in a good mood.
Mm-hmm. Enid. She's like, "Who's Enid?" And she's like, "Ah, just kidding."
Thank goodness, because she had me worried for a minute.
And Mrs. Claus is saying to the witch, "So your husband went to this place with all the previous Santa Clauses who were all men.
Yeah, but of course they were all men. Santa Claus has always been a guy. Duh. But they're adding more of that sexism shit in there, and it's like, why? That's so unnecessary. That was completely unnecessary to the whole show.
A little. And Noel's looking for Betty. He's like, "Where's Betty?"
I know.
"Where's Betty?"
Gotta stress us out like that.
And here comes Betty, and they're calling their
Sugar Plum, Honey Bear, and all these other things.
All these cute little sweet nicknames.
It's almost nauseating.
Literally. And she slaps him in the face like, how dare you leave me? And even though he did left a note.
But neither one had figured that out yet.
Simon was who ripped the note up, so she never received that note.
Exactly. So yeah, they'll figure that out later.
I don't know. Maybe.
They might compare notes. She'll probably be like, "Why didn't you leave me a note?" He's like, "I did," and they'll figure it out real quick.
Oh dear. And she's telling Noel that you're my Christmas spirit. You're my husband. You're my happiness.
Aww.
Very sweet. And here comes Scott Calvin. She's glad to see Scott Calvin back. And in another scene, Scott is deciding whether he should put back the coat back on or not.
Well, clearly it didn't go well, so.
And he's looking to his family, and they give him the okay, and he puts back the coat on,
And in the great tradition of cheesy, like 80s style, like photography or cinematography, we get this
He's
little
back as Santa
sparkly,
Claus.
sparkly transition right there.
He's back as Santa Claus. And Mrs. Claus is like, there's my,
sexy big bearded man or something like
yes.
that. And the kids are like, ew.
Yes. And the kid's like, yeah. The bowl full of jelly. What was that? Lyra?
Sorry, I had it into my ashtray. I was trying to sneak away.
Oops. So in this scene, I think he was like, what is he saying right here, Laura?
I'm trying to remember. It might be more of him having fucked up, and they're going to do better.
Yeah.
But then I think he invites the family along with him, and
the family along with him to go on one of his runs. Yeah.
And Noel is like finally realizing his girlfriend is a little more important than taking a ride, so he's happily staying with her.
Yep, Noel's gonna stay back and spend time with Betty instead of going to sleigh with Santa. And Santa invites Sandra, Mrs. Claus, and Calvin to go on one of his runs with him. And Sandra,
they're like,
and Mrs. Claus is excited. Calvin doesn't seem to be, because he's still
a little surprised.
Anxious with the sleigh thing.
Yeah, he looks a little surprised, but.
And there's Gary.
He's so funny.
With the peppermint eye patch. And he's like, he feels excluded that he can't go.
Aww.
And he's kind of throws salty shade at Santa Claus.
Yeah. Oh, it's kind of his thing.
Yeah. No, look happy. Calvin goes. So they have like 3 hours till Christmas.
It's the memory bank.
Yeah, hits the snow globe memory bank, and tells the elf at the desk who's in charge for the snowball memory bank that he wants to take all of them.
Yeah, he's like, I need to make a withdrawal or get some of the memories. And she's like, how many do you need? I hit all of them. Like, oh shit.
That's gonna be a huge bag.
Oh yeah. Thank goodness it's magical.
Hopefully it's a magical bag that never runs out of room.
That's what it works with the presents.
So Enid tells Santa that she dusts Simon and Grace back home.
Yep.
So maybe I think that she's kind of foreshadowing they won't remember this.
Yeah.
At all. I think that's
kind of sad because Simon really needs to learn a fucking lesson. If you don't have a memory, how are you going to learn your lesson?
True.
So that kind of is ruined. So he's probably just going to go back and be this greedy skis ball that's fucking stuff up anyway.
Yeah, and then becomes Simon with this weird.
Oh my god! I know. What the fuck? Where did you even get that? That is so weird.
Wait, hold on. Let me see. I can
Yeah,
there it is.
What is that? Like he's posing weird and everything, and they're like, "What's the
weird Santa mask outfit?" And it was like thumbs down.
Yeah, they're like, "Yeah." He's like, "Too much." They're like, "Yes, too much."
Yes, too much. Too much. Too much.
The whole elf command station is back. Command center, whatever.
Yeah, he's like, too much.
He got a utility belt on too. I didn't realize he had a utility belt on his red pajamas.
Yes, utility belt. Get too much.
Indeed.
Back to the Christmas NOAD place. Really stepping up the game to get Christmas done on ahead of schedule. And Grace is like with Noel, they were back in business. And Santa's doing his rounds with his family and finally spending Christmas together. That's what Mrs. Claus says. So they're zipping around all over the globe, making deliveries. The kids fell asleep.
Aww.
And Santa tells them to wake up. And stuff like that. That
he's getting
tired and stuff like that.
So he's giving his son a chance.
Mm-hmm.
Oh wait, that's right. Yeah, because like earlier in the show, he told the girl like, my dad really is Santa. Just stay up all night tonight, and I'll show you.
Yep, she's up, and then Calvin comes down the chimney, and she's like, "What the?"
The look of alarm on her face, like, "What the fuck?"
Yeah, what the hell? And Calvin's
he's trying to hide for some reason.
Yeah, he's trying to pretending
he
like
told
he's
her
an old.
Up, so I don't know why he didn't like.
He's trying to pretend to be an old dude and try to hide. And it's not working.
Right.
And he goes up to her, takes out something for her brother, and she's just
Pop.
It looks like a Loki Funko Pop.
Could be.
And she's just like not having it. And then he takes these flowers out for her, and that's when she's like all like happy and stuff. Like, how do you know? And then she kisses him, and
makes him all magical and shit.
Yeah, they're floating in the air, and she's like in disbelief.
I mean, he swept her off her feet, kind of.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, he's like, "So how
they're
about
back in his sleigh?" And he's like, "That was the best time of my life."
Yeah, he's super happy. He's like, "You dusted her, right?" And he's like, "Oh, yeah, of course."
He's trying to remember right if he dusted her or not. Yeah. I'm assuming not.
I'm assuming not too. He looked very unsure and like,
and just like Mrs. Claus is like, whatever, stuff like that, and she's happy. Oh, I think Sandra tells Santa Claus like the reindeer don't want to be called by.
Oh yeah, they want whole new names.
It's like new names like Steve or something.
Yeah, I think Steve was the last one because all the rest of them are some other weird shit.
Mm-hmm. Now we're back to Simon and Grace. Oh no, that's not Grace. I'm sorry. Before that, Santa said he gave people that they weren't expecting this year, that they never asked for. So it's revealed that what they got was the memory snow globes. This little girl's memory of a puppy. And then we see Grace and Simon. Grace, looks at a picture of her dad or her mom. And then we see Santa Claus, Mrs. Claus, Sandra and Calvin back in the North Pole. Noel and Betty are celebrating. Everybody's like celebrating. Gary does a little dance by himself, and everyone's happy and dancing along. And Betty goes to Santa saying, saying it's nice to have him back. They only had 364 days left till Christmas.
And she's like, and we're already behind schedule.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Santa looks on, and I think he was finally right here in the scene, really finally accepting his role as Santa Claus, being at peace with it. You know what I mean? And looks on with all his family and the elves, and just having a good time. And that's the episode. That's episode 6, Christmas to Remember, and that's the series.
That's the show, folks.
Yep. So, what did you think about this whole series, start to finish?
I really feel like Santa should have kicked Simon's ass. Like
all
the elves disappeared, and then as soon as he says "I'm sorry," everybody gives him a hug. Are you fucking kidding me? I feel like it was not nearly enough violence.
Well, he was sorry, and then he was, forgiven. All ends well. Yeah, but besides that, what did you thought about the whole series?
It was all right.
Yeah, I thought it was all right too. Like,
a little cheesy, but it was all right.
Mm-hmm. I thought I thought the TV series started off really well. Like, it's been a number of years since we saw Scott Calvin as Santa Claus. Of the last movie where he faced off as when he faced off Jack Frost. So it's been he said it in the series, it's been 29 years since he took on the role of Santa Claus and stuff like that, which is a really long time. I thought the series was really good. A bit of a time skip, catch up kind of thing.
Yeah, a little bit, but yeah.
Mm-hmm. And we got to introduce. We saw Mrs. Claus, and we saw the kids.
We got Bernard in there for a little,
Mm-hmm. We saw the kids who were who were just little babies at the end of the last film of the escape clause, and that they have magical abilities. Calvin can see magic. Sandra can talk to animals. Though I'm a little confused though. Like in the movies, like for instance, you can hear the deer talking, and Santa Claus wasn't really surprised by it. But in the TV series, you don't see Santa Claus really talking to the animals or the reindeer. You only can see that with Sandra, which is kind of a little odd.
I don't know. Maybe they were playing that in a little bit or could explain it with the fact that during part of the show, Santa had lost some of his magic powers and she was gaining.
Oh yeah, that could be it.
Got asked.
That could be it. That could explain as to why we didn't really see that.
Or he took them for granted and just didn't talk to them much anymore because he had that going. So the creators could explain it either way, really.
I don't know about that.
Excuse me.
Yeah, we do see Bernard, who has lived a long time and gave up his more immortality to be with his human wife. We see the previous clause for Scott Calvin and the ones before that.
Even a couple of saints, I think.
Mm-hmm.
One or two at least.
And Krampus.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and we got to know the reason as to why Scott Calvin was chosen as Santa.
And they basically hinted that they thought with a changing world, a more human touch basically might do okay.
So it was like a test.
Yeah, I think so.
Kind of to see if they're this was going to go okay or not.
Yeah,
because the previous
never given a human that power before.
Santa, the previous before that of Santas were mythical,
ethereal beings. They said
ethereal beings.
Ethereal.
Okay.
Sorry.
Yeah, and seeing so
otherworldly, I think.
Otherworldly, yeah.
Yeah, I think that's it.
Yeah, otherworldly. And seeing Scott Calvin getting, losing his passion, his morale as being Santa.
Yeah, his sense of purpose.
Yeah, which we've seen before in the last movie of the Escape Clause. And we just didn't really see it fully like we did in the TV series. Yeah. It was like, really about like, Scott Calvin really accepting his role as Santa Claus. Mrs. Claus, having identity crisis.
Poor thing.
As Mrs. Claus and feel like she's not really being her own person. She was struggling with that. As for the kids, I think they were trying. I think they wanted to I think they were really curious about the real world and stuff like that.
But at the same time, the brother was, but Sandra was less so. She wanted to stay.
Yeah, she wanted to stay home. But I think Calvin too, but just not as much as Sandra. And stuff like that. And again, Calvin and Sandra are learning that, since they were born in the North Pole, they have magical abilities as humans. So I think they were the first. It was revealed that were the first humans in the North Pole to have magical abilities. I think so. Yeah, like start to finish, I thought was really good. And stuff like that. It was like it's a good wholesome TV series to watch.
A little too wholesome. I'm still mad they didn't kick Simon's ass. That dude was an outright prick for like a whole year and 2 seconds. So I'm sorry, and they all group hugged the bastard. I'm like, you gotta be kidding.
Yes. It was a little cheesy, but
they resolved it too quickly. I was like,
Well, it did. I have to admit there was some funny stuff in it. Like for instance, for example, Noel chewed the bars of the sweet prison to get Scott Calvin / Santa out of prison, which the bars are really made of licorice. And the whole time that the key was at the desk. So I thought it was funny. I would definitely recommend if you're like into something like a really good holiday TV show, I would watch this. It's good, wholesome, funny, fun. It takes right after the last movie, The Escape Clause, after some number of years, and centers around Scott Calvin, really trying to come to terms of his roles as Santa. Carol dealing with her identity as Santa Claus. I think her name is Carol.
Whose name is Carol? The wife?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's Carol. I'm fairly sure.
Yeah. Her name is Carol.
Sandra, Calvin, trying to come to terms. Both of them were trying to come to terms, going to the normal reality of things. Discovering their magical powers. And yes, we do see Charlie in the TV series as well. And it was kind of of a letdown for
right?
Scott, his dad.
Yeah.
Which is a little disappointing, really. But overall, I say this is a really good series to watch for the holidays. If you want something wholesome to watch, I would definitely recommend it. And yeah, that's the whole entire TV series. I don't know if they're gonna do a second series or not. We'll see. But maybe, hopefully, we'll see Scott Calvin doing the Santa Claus's suit again. But thanks for coming. I really appreciate it. Please check out my gaming channel that is in the description below of this live stream. And here is the link for it.
Yeah.
And what else? I'll be getting, say, sometime this week or next week, I'll be getting back into my painting hangouts.
Yay!
On this channel. So look forward to that. And also getting into gaming as well. I'll be playing Gotham Knights and Hogwarts Legacy on my gaming channel, which is on the link right here. So please follow me out there. I really appreciate it. And please give this video a like. And if you're new here, click on the subscribe button. I really appreciate it. And yeah, I want to take off. You guys have a good rest of your night.
Lots of hugs to everybody.
Mm-hmm. And do you want to shout out your channel before we go, Mara?
You thought you what?
You want to shout out your channel before we go?
Oh, I don't do much shilling. The little robot thing will probably do just fine.
Yep, here's Mara's channel. She does hangouts and watches silent films as well.
I'm hoping to get back into things
soon. Mm-hmm. And with that, we're gonna take off and have a good night, everybody, and we'll catch you later.
Whipper.
Night, y'all. Laters. If this is your first time being here, don't forget to hit that subscribe button. You can also follow me on Twitter and Instagram at RaquelSSG2211. Catch you later.